Hello, my friend. Welcome to live chat. I was trying to think about what I wanted to chat about today, and I have been, living in the U.S. There's a lot going on here, and I wanted to do something that was very low stress. So today we're going to be talking about makeup that we didn't see coming, makeup that completely changed the way that we think about makeup. I have some eyeshadow palettes mostly in front of me, but I also have some other products that I want to talk about, and just kind of go back through memory lane. I have been on YouTube with this channel since 2012. It was fall of 2012, so I'm coming up. Oh, wait, I started the channel in April, but I think I uploaded my first video in the fall. So I'm coming up on 10 years. So I have quite the collection of vintage makeup. Which sounds kind of gross now that I'm thinking about it. It's like vintage makeup. Is that something you really want to have? I don't know. That's debatable. But I do want to go through these and kind of have a conversation and talk about what these products did to the makeup industry and how it changed everything. Because the way that we look at products now is completely different than we did 10 or even 5 or even 2 years ago. So we are going to get into that, but first, I do want to say hello very quickly to the people that are here live in the collective brain of makeup awesomeness. If you're watching this on the replay or listening to this on the replay, you can participate down in the comment section down below or just in your brain. Whatever makes you happy. So very quickly, good morning to everybody that is here live. So good morning, Tish. So good to see you. Good morning, Teresa, and the rest of the moderators. Hope that you are doing well. Steph and Flory and Audra, if you happen to be here. And of course, my husband, John, that is sitting over there. Welcome to live chat. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well also, Teresa. Hello, Diana. So good to see you. Thriving and Beyond, Leslie. So good to see you. Catherine and Bama Chick and Andrea and Bama Chick again. Hope everyone is doing great today. Ready for What's Up in Makeup? Me too. What's Up in Makeup, the news show, is a really good episode today. I hope that you tune in. The stories are very involved, especially the one about Rhode Skincare. There's actually two stories. One of them about Rhode Skincare, about the trademark violation, is very much public and in the news, but there's actually a second story that isn't getting as much press regarding Rhode Skincare, so that's in there as well. I think that you'll find it very fascinating. Casey, hello to you. Happy What's Up in Makeup Day. Hi, Emily and Michelle. Christy and Jess, and thank you so much for the plug, Jess. If you want to help out with Jen and the collective brain of makeup awesomeness, please like and share this video. Sending extra love to all my peeps with uteruses here in the US. And just very, very quickly, I've been involved politically in my brain for the past, however many hours, and I do want to take a break from that, but I do want to encourage you, if you're not registered to vote, there's primaries going on right now. There's the local elections that are happening in November. I would strongly encourage you to make sure you're registered to vote, even if you've never been political before. It's really, really important that the people that are representing our states represent the people that live there. So please, 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 I did put a link in the video description to register to vote. We really need people who have never voted before to vote where they feel that they need to vote, just to make sure that the people that are representing us are truly the people representing our state. And yeah, that's where I'm going to leave that. But if you want to know, my points of view politically, I've been talking about it a lot on Twitter. I'm not going to talk about it here. I really want to make this be kind of an hour of not thinking about that, because I need that for my mental health. And then I will jump back in an hour probably, and start doing all of that again. So we're taking an hour to talk about makeup. So let's see. I guess I've said hi to enough people. If I did not say good morning to you, good morning to you. Thank you so much for being here. Whew. All right. Jennifer just says, I'm driving by your neighborhood this weekend. So question, are you going to be at the market this Saturday? I'm not going to be at Maple Lawn this Saturday. I will be at the Olney Farmers Market this coming Sunday. So next Sunday's chat is going to be at 5 p.m. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the most obvious thing that changed our worlds as far as makeup, and that's the Urban Decay Naked palette. I do still have mine, and it is quite gently used considering how big of a palette this was. I was very much more into my Naked 2 palette than I was into the original Naked palette. The Urban Decay Naked palette, I think, was the first time we ever got, to my knowledge, a higher, well, we thought it was high quality. Now using the Urban Decay formula now is very, like, we have other things that brought us, I think, into better quality makeup. But I think this was the first palette that a lot of people used that was, it really helped us take our makeup to the next level. For me, it was Naked 2, but I know for a lot of people, it was the original Naked palette. So I pulled that out. I don't know what it was about this. I would love to know your thoughts about it and why this was so freaking game changing for everybody. It really, for me, it was my introduction to high-end makeup. But I know for a lot of people, you've been buying high-end makeup from maybe Clinique or Estee Lauder or, whoever before this. And what was different about this for you? I know it was the first time when I got the Naked 2 that I ever did my eyeshadow that I thought looked actually really good, but I was raised on Revlon. I was raised on Revlon and Maybelline eyeshadows, the least expensive ones you could find at the drugstore. And I thought that was normal because I feel like at the time, that, so I read a comment and I got distracted and I have ADHD. I thought at the time those drugstore formulas were as good as it would get, and that any problems I had with my eyeshadow was my fault with application, which probably part of it was. But when I got my hands on the Urban Decay Naked 2 palette, it really brought my makeup to the next level, and I was shocked at how much I felt like it changed my makeup game. So what do you all think? Let's see. Okay. Yeah, Gigi says, I love the browns and cool tones. Yeah. And I think that it was so well designed too. It was so user friendly in that the way that it was organized with the light shades, the mid shades, and the deep shades. And I felt like this seemed to, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed to work for many, many skin tones, where that wasn't necessarily the case before these palettes, I don't think. But you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong on that. The other thing that I wanted, let me see, hold on a second. I think there's one more I wanted to click. Yes. Thriving Beyond says, I think even as a brand, Urban Decay raised the bar. Thriving Beyond says, I think even as a brand, Urban Decay raised the bar. Unique and edgy for that time. Urban Decay was pushing some limits that needed to be pushed. And speaking of that, you know what? That's a great segue into the second palette I wanted to talk about, which is the Urban Decay Electric palette. And this actually isn't even mine. This belongs to my husband. He had purchased this for a channel that he was creating way back then, where he was doing basically a parody channel of beauty channels. And he had purchased this for that. And I feel like the Urban Decay Electric palette, again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I was relatively new to makeup back then, but this was so different than anything I personally had ever seen in makeup before the Urban Decay Electric palette. The other thing the Urban Decay Electric palette had that I had never seen before was the disclaimer on the back about it not being safe for eye use. And people lost their minds about this disclaimer. Let me see if I can find where it says it. It's very, very tiny. Warning: slow burn, savage, jilted, and urban are not intended for immediate eye area. And that was the first time I had ever seen that. Now it is extremely common to have eyeshadows that are not meant for the eye area within an eyeshadow palette. It's just kind of part of our world now. And if you're not sure like why it might say that and all that, I have so many freaking videos on this. The big one that I have that talks about this is actually about this palette, which is the James Charles Morphe palette. I did pull that out. Oops, I accidentally clicked my mouse. Hopefully I didn't click anything I wasn't supposed to. But it's so common now. And now Morphe is actually being sued for deceptive marketing. We talked about that in What's Up in Makeup a few weeks ago. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I'm not missing something. Morphe is actually being sued for deceptive marketing in using the not safe for eye use pigments on the eyes in their advertising and their marketing. But there are so many brands that have done that. This like was a gateway opening up the whole makeup industry to those pressed pigments. So just very quickly, if you are not sure about which eyeshadow palettes you have that may have pressed pigments in them that are technically by FDA standards not safe for eye use. If it's called a pigment palette, if it's called a shadow palette, if they specifically don't use the word eye on it, chances are it has some pressed pigments in it. You can look it up online. You can look if you still have the box. Sometimes it does, like a lot of times it won't say on the actual packaging. It'll only be on the outer carton. So you just have to like check and see. But the bottom line with not safe for eye use pressed pigments is that our FDA, a lot of people believe that the regulations in the US are very outdated because the European Union does approve these pigments for eye use. And they keep up better than we do. And you can search, somebody told me that that's not, that, why am I so, somebody left a comment, something about why am I so biased against the United States, that the European Union isn't better than, I'm like, dude, that is like not even, it's like, if you just like look and see the last time, I haven't looked recently, but I remember I was doing a video and I looked to see like when the European Union updated their pigment database as far as what was safe for different parts of the face. Because there's pigments that are not safe for lip use, pigments that are not safe for eye use, pigments that are not safe for both. They had updated it a few months before, where the US regulations, it's been literal decades since they've updated a lot of that stuff, at least in the data that I could find online. So I personally trust EU regulations more when it comes to that. So therefore, I don't take it very seriously. There are pigments in eyeshadows like bismuth oxychloride that are a scratchy pigment that can cause irritation for some people. I've actually heard of more people being sensitive to bismuth oxychloride that is approved by the FDA than I have people being sensitive to the red pigments that are not approved for eye use. So what does that say? I don't know. And maybe it just says that's just the way my audience is. But point is, this changed the game. This changed it for every brand. The fact that they opened up those pigments for use. And so many brands jumped on that and started using them once they saw Urban Decay get away with it, and how they got away with it with that little disclaimer on the back. So yeah, Gigi. Gigi just keeps popping up? The FDA needs to get going with their makeup game. Yeah, I mean, I think that the FDA is underfunded and they have a lot of things that they have to deal with, and it's just low on the priority scale when it comes down to it. Yes, Nicole says the most unusual and most loved for me is the Urban Decay Alice in Wonderland palette. I have it here. I know exactly where it is, and that's why I'm grabbing it. This I loved so much. You know, I'm a big Alice in Wonderland fan. I named my marshmallow company Mad Marshmallows after Alice in Wonderland. And I did do my very first tutorial that I did with colors was with this palette. It wasn't even a tutorial, it was a demo as part of the review. But I was so proud of the look that I made with this. It was the first really colorful look that I was proud of that I did. I was, because this is not an easy palette to use with that color story. It is, it's not, you know, when you look at the Naked palette, like that is a lot easier a lot harder to mess up. This is very easy to mess up, this color story, if you're breaking into those colors. So I was very, very proud of myself. And if you've never seen this, it has this here and it says, I'm not strange, weird, off, nor crazy. My reality is just different from yours. And then when you open it up, there's a butterfly inside that can like flap its little butterfly wings. So it's really cool. I wish Urban Decay came out with more stuff like this. Even though the packaging's excessive, everybody kind of complained that it was big and bulky. I think they're really pretty. I do. Okay, next palette I wanted to talk about, which we have to talk about, is the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. This is another one where I thought it was the best eyeshadow palette on the entire planet when I got it. And I use it later and I was like, this is not that good. Wah, wah, wah. I thought this was so revolutionary. Like, look at it now. Look how basic this looks now. Like, we lost our minds over this. I almost said the S word. We lost our minds over this palette. It still smells really good. It really does. But I think the quality was a step up from the Urban Decay Naked palettes. And it had this purple in here, which actually is not even a great purple. There is a black base to it that makes it look really gray on the skin. It's really kind of sucks. Like that purple is not a good purple, like at all. I don't know what we were thinking. I don't. I don't know what we were thinking, but why did we lose our minds over this? Why? Other than the fact it smells like chocolate. I remember really liking this shade here and thinking this one was really special. But like, is it really? Is that really special? Like not now, but it did change the game for us in the scented makeup category. And I know not everybody is, but I am a big fan of scented makeup and have been since I got this palette. I think that the pink was a little bit different. I don't know. There was just something about this. And the looks that I made with it came out really pretty. And I think that this was the second palette after the Urban Decay Naked 2 palette that I created looks that I thought were really genuinely pretty. And I was like, I can do this makeup thing. I might be okay at makeup. I still had a lot of learning to do, but I felt a lot better about it. Why do I keep clicking on the same people? I'm so sorry about that, but they're the ones that pop up right in front of me. And I love these people. Diving Beyond Leslie says, love, love, love the Too Faced formula for better or worse. That formula works so well for me. I keep my original chocolate bars in my makeup museum. Still love them. Yeah, I have one of these cabinets has all of, actually it's that one right there, has all of my old palettes that I don't use anymore that I just keep for nostalgia's sake. Yeah, Melissa's, I meant to click on Melissa. Modern Renaissance, I've got that too. We'll talk about that in a second. This is the one I meant to click on. Melissa says, I think the smell is why it gained popularity. I think that is part of it. And like the packaging, the fact that it looked like a chocolate bar. Had we ever seen packaging that looked like food like this before this? I don't know if we had. Like the fact that it looked like a chocolate bar, like now we have all, like I have right here, I didn't even mean to grab this. This is just sitting here for a while, but like Glam Light's burger palette, like nothing like this existed. Like this was another thing that brought makeup to a whole nother level. Like doing weird things like burgers and makeup, like that had never, before Glamlight started doing it, like tacos and burgers and stuff like that and French fries but yeah, I don't think, speaking of that, we have someone named French Fry. Hi, French Fry. I love the Too Faced Cinnamon Bun palette and I love it. Nice. Yeah, Carolyn says it was her first palette. But I don't think we ever had a food shaped palette before this. I think this was the first one, if I remember correctly. Emily says, I only had the white chocolate palette and it was bought for me as a gift. I'm so sorry. That palette was atrocious. At least in my opinion, it was real powdery, real dusty. I do have a review of that from back then. It was so powdery and dusty. There were a couple of good shades in there though. Yeah, Jana says, for me, it was the peach one that turned me on to scented makeup. I brought that one out too. The chocolate was so strong. Yes, absolutely. The peach. Let's talk about the peach. All right. I feel like when I mark the times in makeup, the peach is I feel like the tippy top of when we were makeup crazed as a society. When we were buying such an obnoxious amount of makeup, I feel like this was the pinnacle. This was the top. This was the height of when people were losing their minds over makeup, because the marketing for this was like nothing anyone had ever seen. They were hyping it for so long. It was around Christmas time. I want to say they started hyping it like October into November maybe. But do you remember Laura Lee was in the commercial for this that they did on, I don't know if it was actually what made it to television, but I remember all the promos had they made like a whole cartoon, like a whole Christmassy, what's that? What's the Christmas animation, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer animation, like that kind of animation commercial kind of thing for like a promo for this collection. And it was this huge thing. And if you wanted to buy anything from the Peach collection, not just the palette, but if you want to buy anything, well, maybe it was just the palette at the time before the skincare came out, not skincare, but before the rest of the products came out. But if you wanted to buy this when it launched, you had to wait in line online for hours. You went to their website, the screen popped up, and it said, you are the 75,432nd person in line. Do not close your browser or you will lose your place. It was like that. Like, it was nuts. And you had to leave your browser open for literal hours. And if you were lucky, it didn't sell out before you got to the front of the line. And this was at launch. I have not seen anything like that in many, many years, where a launch, people were that nuts over it. It just doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen. People lost their mind over the Peach collection. And, you know, I feel like they just couldn't, Too Faced just couldn't replicate this after that. And I think the market changed after it. But I do think that the Peach collection changed everything, and not just the palette, but all of the other products as well. I really like the primer and the Peach primer and the Peach face powder a lot. Those were my two favorite products from the line. The highlighter was trash. Like, there was like a little highlighter palette that like you could not get the product off of the palette. It was absolute trash. So not everything was good, but they had some real big gems in that collection that I think really changed everything. I'm going to scroll down quite a bit because I've been talking for a while. Okay, so speaking of, hold on a second. Yeah, Kimberly says it brought out major FOMO. It set a bad precedent. I think so too. And speaking of that, yeah, was it stop motion? Is that what it is? That stop claymation, stop motion, something like that. One of those things. I don't know. I don't know much about animation or something like that. But like the heat miser, like I think that was what it was. Whatever that one is, was something about. I forget. I don't know. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But one thing I wanted to mention along the lines of, you know, selling out and FOMO is this palette right here. This is the Lorac Mega Pro Original Palette. If you don't know the story behind this, this one I think is less well known than some of the other ones. The story behind this palette is that it launched only on Amazon in limited numbers. And we were talking about it in What's Up in Makeup. We were talking about in the community that it was coming. And it just quietly launched one day on Amazon. And I had a subscriber of mine at the time. I don't remember how she reached out to me, but she said, Jen, the Lorac Mega Pro is on Amazon right now. Go get it. And I remember my heart jumping into my throat. I remember that whole, everything that comes with like that nervousness about, am I going to get it? That the endorphin rush. And I jumped on Amazon's site and I bought it and I got it. And I felt like queen of the freaking world because I got this palette. How dumb does that sound now? But at the time, look at this thing. Look at this palette. So this is what it looked like. Why did I lose my mind over this? The thing about this that kills me is that this whole side, like there's so many repeat shades. Like what? Like, do we really need like these two shades, these two shades? Well, this is a shimmer and that's a matte. But like, there really isn't a whole lot of contrast happening over here. So it's like, why did I lose my mind? Why? But this was a thing. And then the only people that got this were the people that were able to get on Amazon and get it. And I was able to do that. And I freaked out. Eventually, they did release more of them. They also released a Lorac Mega Pro 2, 3, and 4. I bought all of them. It's a fantastic formula. It really is. And I think that's part of the reason why people were losing their mind is because the original Lorac Pro palettes, the ones that were more like the modern Renaissance, they were, we knew that it was a different kind of formula. It was a little powderier, it was more pigmented, and it just went on differently than the Too Faced and the Urban Decay palettes at the time. It was just different. The pan size was smaller, and it just packed more punch than what we were used to with the Too Faced and the Urban Decay products. So when Lorac dropped their pro palettes, people were really excited about because it was something different. At the time, if my timeline is correct, ABH had only released the Master Palette by Mario. They started out with brow products, and that was their big thing. And the Master Palette by Mario, I actually had a friend of mine sent this to me. My friend Nancy sent this to me because she wasn't using it, and she said, you know, hey, do you want to have this for your collection? It's kind of old, you know, but if you want to have it just to show it or whatever. I was like, yeah, totally, like, because this is something that I missed out on. But this formula, the Master Palette by Mario by ABH, is a completely different formula than what we got used to when ABH released Modern Renaissance. If my timeline is correct, Modern Renaissance came out after the original Lorac Pro palettes. And the Modern Renaissance formula was very similar in the way that it performed to the Lorac formula. And, but the colors were more exciting. The colors were more interesting. So ABH kind of took what Lorac was doing as far as the more powdery formula, the more pigmented formula, and added more unique shades, which made ABH's eyeshadow palettes become super, super famous. And everybody started losing their mind over ABH shadows because they were so different as far as the colors that were being released. And we just didn't know. We had no idea that this was the direction that makeup was going to go and how big ABH was going to be. Yeah, Afra says, Lorac doesn't have exciting color stories, but their formula is so dang good. I use the Lorac palette for my wedding because the mattes blend like a dream and the shimmers are so smooth. Oh, definitely. And Lorac, I think that people turned against Lorac when they went into Kohl's because a lot of Kohl's makeup doesn't seem to be very good. And I think that was a bad move for them. It gave them a cheaper vibe, in my opinion. And the way I saw people start talking about Lorac when they went into Kohl's, I think people kind of lost respect for the brand as a, I don't know, as a coveted brand. You know, it was like, you know, they would go into Kohl's and the palettes would be a mess and, you know, open, and like it gave that TJ Maxx Marshalls kind of feel, and people were kind of like, ugh. And it just kind of takes away from feeling like it's something special. And I think that's really where they went wrong with it, unfortunately, which is really sad because nothing changed with the quality, in my opinion, as Lorac, you know, went through the, you know, started releasing more stuff. I don't think anything really changed with the formula. I think it was just the vision, the marketing of the brand just kind of died. But they have really, really good lipsticks. Their lipsticks were freaking phenomenal. The Lorac lipsticks, their contour products, their cheek products were amazing. Their contour palette was incredible. But yeah, like I do kind of feel like, if my timeline in my brain is correct, that Modern Renaissance, you know, and the ABH shadow boom was really an after of the Lorac formula. But I could be wrong there. I could be wrong, but that's the way my brain remembers it. Yes, exactly. Makeup or breakup plug. The palettes that shook the makeup lovers of the world. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. Heva says, wow, I thought it was going to be a magical palette. When you open it, it's boring AF. I know, look at it. It's so freaking boring. But I died over this thing. I freaking died over it. We all did. We all lost our minds. So ABH, I've kind of talked about that a little bit. I think that, you know, with this, I think another thing that ABH did that was different was the velvet packaging. Some people hated the velvet packaging because it does get very dirty, but I'm pretty sure they were the first major brand to do velvet packaging, and it just feels good to hold. And it's that tactile experience where Too Faced really took advantage of that olfactory experience, you know, of being able to smell it as you open it and you're getting ready for your day, and you just start your day with that chocolate scent or that peach scent. excuse me, or whatever, modern Renaissance really made us, it's that soft, comfortable feeling, you know, it's a cozy feeling. It's a comforting, warm feeling when you pick up something like this that you don't even realize. It just kind of goes into your subconscious and gives you kind of pleasurable thoughts without even really realizing it. And then you go in and you create a beautiful look. And then you go into work or to school or, you know, wherever, and people start complimenting you on your eyeshadow. And it reinforces wanting to purchase more. And we didn't know how big this palette was going to be. Nancy, I was just talking about you. Hi, Nancy. Look, you gave this to me. Nancy gave this to me. She sent it to me. This is Nancy's palette. Here, I'll give it to you. Here you go. There you go. That's for you, Nancy. It's so good to see you. Nancy gave this to me. That's so fun that you're here. I love that. I love when that happens. That's so cool. Yes. Oh, the beginning of the $50 palettes. I know, right? People are talking to Jess. Jess says Lorac had some terrible palettes, though. Their brunch one was not for me. That is very true. Good point. I bought the brunch palette. It was very, if you don't remember this one, I don't have it anymore. I decluttered it, but it was very light colored. It had a lot of more pastel looking shades, and the pigmentation just wasn't there. I actually still have, I think, some of the brunch blushes, which were also very pastel, and you really had to have the right complexion in order for them to be flattering, because they were like super cool toned and just, I don't know. It was an odd collection. And that, you're right, Jess, that may have been part of people not trusting the brand as well, because I do feel like that was kind of the beginning of the end for Lorac. Not that they're over completely, because they still exist, but the kind of the downfall of Lorac, where people kind of stopped buying from them, was that brunch collection. People kind of lost faith in them because it really was not a very good palette. I'm pretty sure I did a full review on that collection as well. But that's a really good point, Jess. I appreciate you bringing that up. All right, we are at the halfway point. So let's just take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about some other palettes that aren't as obvious as far as changing the game. So let's talk about my eye look today that I really did like. It looks real basic, but it actually, it's, so this is the Kosas simmer shade of their liquid shadows. Let me swatch all this stuff separately for you so you can see what it looks like on its own. I did get this through a promo program from a company that I work with. So I didn't pay for this, but I really wanted, oh wait, no, you know what? They were offering these as, I think they were offering these as promo, but I purchased this before I realized they were offering this promo, and I was kicking myself for buying it because I could have gotten it for free and I didn't. So that's what it just gives like a wash of color. If you are a different, see, almost matches my skin tone. You can see the pigmentation on it though. So if you're a different skin tone than me, this may show up differently on you than it does on me, but it just gives a really beautiful shine. But on top of that, I used this. This was sent to me by Carla Cosmetics. This is their shade Teddy Bear. That's what the gold shine is. Doesn't that not look like it's going to be gold? But this is a really, they're very expensive, but they're very, very beautiful. This is an indie brand that sent these over. And they're very fun to use because you don't really know what to expect. So that's what's happening. Go like this. See if you can see. That's what's going on there. And I'm going to swatch it next to it. Can you, hold on. Whoop. Let me swatch again. It really did pack onto this in a very lovely way. Hopefully you can see it. It's not coming off on camera. There it is. You can see a little bit of a shift. I wanted to do was purposely like a really light eye. And then as I got into it, I really wanted to deepen up my crease just a little bit in the outer corner just a little bit. So I added this in and people were asking, I think it was What's Up in Makeup last week, what I was wearing. This was sent NPR by Sigma. This is the Essentials palette by Stephanie Lang. I freaking love this palette. Like, it looks like a basic palette, but it is so good. It is such a good palette. Stephanie did a fantastic job. I don't know Stephanie like at all, but she did a phenomenal job on this palette. She really did. She did such a great job. So I just used the shade just to kind of deepen up the outer corner, give it just a little bit more dimension, but I wanted it to be a supernatural kind of look. On my lips today, I used the Girl Scout Cookie Thin Mint lipstick by Hip Dot that I bought. And that's all that's on my lips today. I really like this formula. It feels good on the lips. There's no stick to it, but it does dry down pretty well. But it's not like a super hydrating lip. You know what? Hip Dot, the Reese's ones, they are more hydrating than these. These dry down a little bit more, and they're not quite as hydrating like I thought they were when I first got them. But now the more I use them, they dry down more, and they don't transfer. Almost like a liquid lipstick, but in a stick form, which is weird. And then here, this is the Rare Beauty blush that I purchased. And this is in the shade Nearly Apricot. And I really love this. I bought this against the community's suggestions. People told me that this sucked, and I bought it anyway. And I actually really like it. So I don't know if I'm weird or what. I don't know. I don't know why other people don't like it. But I really like it. I saw someone talk about Subculture. Where'd she go? Jane. Let me get Subculture real quick. It's right here. I know it is. Here it is. Here you are, bye-bye. Okay, so I guess we're only going to talk about eyeshadow palettes today because I have so many of them. And I did bring out like the Tarte Shape Tape Foundation and stuff, where I feel like these have a similar story, the Tarte Shape Tape Foundation and the Subculture, because I do think that it was Alyssa Ashley blowing up both of those products. Alyssa Ashley really like was at the front of these two scandals that happened. So with Subculture, if you were not around for the Subculture disaster, this was the first time, to my knowledge, we ever had an eyeshadow palette with a color story like this. And there were so many of us using it that like, it was so, the thing is the ABH eyeshadow formula is very powdery just naturally. But with this formula, Ghosts in the Mirror are freaking out right now. Why are you freaking out, Ghosts in the Mirror? Why are you wigging? They're really upset with me right now. Okay. All right. We got it. All right. The Ghosts in the Mirror, I don't know why they were freaking out. All right. So anyway, watch me start talking about it and the Ghosts in the Mirror start blinking again. This formula was different. They actually specifically changed the formula for this. I had a whole video talking about how the formula for their palettes before this had more ingredients. There were a lot less ingredients in this. I think they were trying to up the pigmentation of it. But what ended up happening was people were getting a ton of fallout. And because these shadows are so deep that it was hard to remove it if you got all that fallout. So they ended up just making this messy look, muddying on the eyes, just turning into straight mud because people were crossing colors that were opposite the color wheel, and it was turning like this gray brown color. And it just was a hot freaking mess. They did end up reformulating this to being closer to their regular eyeshadow formula. It was just a bad direction. That did not go well for ABH, but I don't know if this actually changed anything. Like as far as like the topic of this chat, did this change anything? I don't know about that. I think that maybe it made people lose a little bit of trust in ABH. Maybe it definitely created a huge internet scandal. Don't you wish that this was the worst thing we had to worry about right now? was like a Subculture kind of situation. Like, I wish this was our biggest drama. That would be amazing. But yeah, but that was a whole thing. That was a whole big thing. Tish says Ghost in the Mirror also had a bad Subculture experience. Maybe the Ghost in the Mirror just had things to say. Maybe. Sorry for cutting you off. I apologize. I need to learn Morse code. Kitty Pan, it says, I love my Subculture despite the fallout. Yeah, I think you just have to be really careful with it. And especially if you have the older original formula of it that was the different formula like this one, you definitely have to be super careful. I think that it's so much better that that they changed the formula to being more like the regular one. Catherine says the ghost hates Subculture, and can you blame them? I know, right? It was a mess. It was a mess. Okay, so the other things I wanted to talk about. a couple of brands that have got themselves into some controversy. So I want to make sure that I'm clear that I am not like saying that I just want to talk about the palettes. Let's leave that and how these palettes changed our opinions of things. So this is the Nubian palette by Juvia's Place. So when Juvia's Place launched, I feel like when I saw these at like IMATS, I remember they had a booth at IMATS. I was a little nervous to walk up because I was thinking, is this a palette for me? Am I going to walk up to this table and they're going to say, you know, you are not Black, therefore you cannot use, like, I was worried about that. Like, because, you know, you want to respect people's culture. But they had such pretty color stories. So I didn't buy from them for a little while. And I think that it was from like my childhood when FUBU, For Us by Us came out. I remember my friends in high school or wherever I was, middle school, high school, saying, this is for us by us. This is not a palette. This is not clothing for you. And I respected that. And I was like, okay, like that's just the way that it is. So with this, I was a little bit like, should I buy this? Is this something that I should respect as something that is only for Black people and not for, you know what I mean? So I was a little bit nervous about that. As it got more into, you know, onto YouTube and things like that, and I realized that the brand wasn't just marketing to Black people, they were celebrating African culture, and they were celebrating African culture through their palettes. I was really excited about it and very excited to try their stuff. So I feel like that was a huge deal to celebrate African culture on makeup had never been done before. And I thought it was really special and really amazing. The other thing that Juvia's Place did that was genius was that they created a very high quality eyeshadow formula at a very low cost. And I think that that really changed things for people, and people realized, other than I think ColourPop at that had been around, but I think they only had Super Shocks. I can't remember if they were releasing pressed pan eyeshadows at that time. I can't remember my timeline. But the fact that you could create high quality eyeshadow at a low cost, I think was a really huge deal at the time. This palette actually isn't as like this palette and the Nubian 2. They actually changed the formula a bit after those first two palettes and improved it even more. So it gave people the ability to realize you did not have to buy an ABH palette or an Urban Decay palette or Too Faced palette to get high quality pressed eyeshadows, which was freaking genius. Absolutely. There was a while I was collecting Juvia's Place palettes for the longest time because they were such high quality for such a low cost. I mean, their shimmers were out of this freaking world. I had never seen shimmers like that before. Let me get a different one because I feel like this one doesn't do it justice. Okay, so this was one. I don't know if they even sell this one anymore. I think they only sell a mini version of this. This was the other thing, is that they made these gigantic freaking pans, like unbelievable pans. Like nobody's gonna go through this in their whole lives. Like you can pass this on to your grandchildren. But what I had never seen before that I feel like Juvia's Place crushed was like these colored foiled shadows. I mean, now there's lots of brands that do things like this, but this was unheard of, in my opinion, before Juvia's Place did it. Again, I don't know everything about everything, so I might be missing something. But like, are you kidding me right now? Are you kidding me right now? Hold on a minute. Like, seriously? What? It was a whole nother world. So I have so many Juvia's Place eyeshadow palettes from that period of time. I was getting every single one of them. Every single one of them. And I remember I was going to Ulta a lot right around that time, the Ulta in Columbia, if you live in the area. And there was a woman that worked there that was always there when I went there. And we were talking about Juvia's Place and different eyeshadows. And we were always talking about makeup. Every time I went in there and she was there, we always chatted. And she had never tried Juvia's Place. So I actually bought her some Juvia's Place palettes and brought them to her as a gift, just as a thank you for helping me when I went into Ulta. And I remember her just being so excited and happy. And then one day she disappeared and I never saw her again. So she must have left working at that Ulta. But if she's ever watching my channel, if she ever watches this, hi, I appreciated all your help over the years. but yeah, I mean, it was a whole nother thing. And then now Juvia's Place is sold in Ulta, but back then it wasn't. So I do feel like Juvia's Place changed the game in so many ways that we just had no idea was going to happen. Let's see what you all are saying. Heba says, I have the Juvia's Place Magic Mini Palette. That's a good one. The pigment is crazy. It scares me to use it, but I love the quality. The only thing about the shimmers that get me about Juvia's Place is because of the way my eyes blink, because my eyes are partially hooded, that transfers right here. So it makes this weird like lump right here because it's so pigmented and they're so creamy that it makes this like lump. So I have to like blend it out. After I apply all my eyeshadow, I have to blend it out. But I do think, honestly, the Glam Light formula that I was talking about earlier, this has just been sitting here because it doesn't really fit anywhere. The Glam Light shimmer formula is extremely similar to the Juvia's Place. Extremely similar. Aw, thank you. Sir Palit says, hiya, I've been binging your videos recently, found you through searching for a good primer and was impressed how knowledgeable you were. Loved your vids and chill vibes here. Well, thank you so much and welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we're going to hold off for a second on the next one that I was going to talk about from a controversial brand and talk about Nikki tutorials for a second. Juvia's Place through Nikki tutorials. All right, Nikki tutorials. Let's talk about Nikki tutorials for a second. Too Faced Power of Makeup. Do you remember this? Okay, so this was the collab that Nikki did with Too Faced. That's what it looked like. Again, people lost their freaking minds over this palette, lost their freaking minds. And I think where this changed the game, okay, part of it was that we have blush and highlighter and contour in this palette, which was different from my knowledge. The other thing is that the collaboration between Nikki and Too Faced went south. At the time, we didn't necessarily know it. But when reviews came out of this palette, a lot of people didn't like it. And Nikki was horrified that the reviews were not coming in very positive. I personally really liked it. My review was positive, but a lot of people did not like it. And she said that the quality didn't seem the same as what she had tested and approved to go out. I don't know how much of that is. The other piece was that the payment aspect, that Too Faced, a lot of people felt like Too Faced took advantage of Nikki, that she ended up getting, from my understanding, a flat rate where the commission that she should have gotten off of this should have been way higher because of how many units were sold, because this was in the height of Too Faced being really popular when people were losing their minds over Too Faced and waiting in those long online lines and stuff like that. So Nikki felt like, I'm pretty sure she's talked about this publicly. I don't know Nikki personally, that she should have earned more off of this. That's what the rumor is. I don't know what's in my brain, what's been said by Nikki, what's been said by other people. So I think this changed the way we thought about brand collabs with influencers, in that they can go bad. They can go to a negative space, where I think before that, we always thought that the brands and the people they collab with, like, it was all good and it all seemed to be good. But this was at the beginning of all of that. And to see that happen to Nikki, I think people were surprised, and it kind of made us think differently about brand collabs. By the way, the palette I'm going to talk about from the more controversial brand is Kat Von D. So just for those of y'all wondering which brand it is, it's the original Kat Von D. This is not the original palette, but this was the first big palette that she came out with. I Am Finley says, they did Nikki wrong with this collection. I stopped supporting them after that, and I am cautious of any eyeshadow they launch now. Yeah, I mean, I think that where I started losing faith in Too Faced was their holiday collections, and that were usually not good at all. So I bought them for decoration. I'm looking at some of them. I have some of them over there on display. I think that I only ever bought the holiday collections for display kind of purposes. I remember the last Too Faced holiday collection that I bought was the one that was like a journal that came with it. And I didn't even review on the channel. I paid like $60 for it. And I never even reviewed it because I was so underwhelmed by it. Like, I wasn't even excited to film the video, and I never did. And I think I maybe used it once. It was such a waste of money. Like, it makes me sick. And I bought that. Yeah. Hi, Edu. Edu says, poor Nikki, wasn't fair to her. I agree. Yeah, that's what I remember too, Brenda Lee. I feel like it was $50,000 or something. Yeah. I mean, compared to how much profit they made, she really should have been getting a percentage of sales along with a flat fee. Karma says Nikki got a bad deal. I felt so bad for her of all things. He who shall not be named was the person who told on Too Faced. Yeah. The Violet December says she's a bazillionaire and she still got more for that palette than most make in a year. Call me heartless, but my sympathy is limited. And I think that you're not alone in that. At the time, though, I don't think she was a bazillionaire. And I don't know if she still is now. I mean, I don't know her financial situation. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like Too Faced were bazillionaires at the time. So it's like, I don't know. I think we're going to have to disagree on that one. But I mean, I'm not mad at you for having a different opinion. But but in the end, you have to make sure that when you sign a contract, I guess she just didn't realize and didn't think about how many would sell maybe at the time. I don't know. All right, so let's talk real quickly about this palette. This palette right here, you may not know this palette. This is called the Spellbinding Eyeshadow Book by Kat Von D. And of course, Kat Von D does not make makeup anymore. I have a whole video on her history of anti-Semitism and all kinds of stuff that but back then I did not know of all of those things. So I purchased a lot of Kat Von D products back then. And this is what made it special, was this back here. So on the back, it says each set of shades are paired together to create perfectly layered looks. So you apply Geek on the lids and blend Fallen on top for a bronzed peach shadow. For a completely different look, apply Fallen on the lids and then blend Geek on top for a perfect golden shadow. So this is the way that it is. So right here, these are the shadows. And what you were supposed to do was you were supposed to use them in quads. So here's a quad, here's a quad, here's a quad. And you were supposed to layer them. That was the point, was to layer them. And it was really fun to play with. It looks like I hardly used it, but they're not powdery like the Lorac and the Anastasia Beverly Hills shadows. They were more pressed down at the time. But I remember just having so much fun with this because as a non-makeup artist, I need help with picking what colors go together. I don't naturally see that. My brain doesn't see colors that will go together. I need a palette to help me with that. And I think that's part of the reason why I had such a hard time with Subculture, because my brain doesn't pick shades that go well together. And this really helped me with that. So this says, every day I create eye looks like a piece of art. I paired my favorites with brand new shades so you can layer for endless captivating looks. And then it's got a couple other suggestions there for you. And I remember creating some really fun looks with this. And I kind of wish that we would go back to things like this where it was clear what shadows were supposed to go together for people that aren't as experienced with makeup, that aren't sure how to pair colors like this, because looking at this, it's intimidating. Like, how do I even put those together? But when you follow the directions by the people that created it, it makes sense. And it was so much easier to use and to come up with pretty looks. And then you do it and you're like, oh my gosh, that looks really good. And I did that. So I wish that there was more things like this. But this was very, very revolutionary at the time. And I don't think this necessarily changed things, because I don't think this kind of thing really caught on as much as it should have. But I do think that this was kind of a game-changing palette at the time. And the artwork is gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. How are we doing on time? We got 7 minutes left. Okay, now I have to pick and choose. I have to pick and choose where I'm going to go. Okay. All right. So right here. Oh, here we go. This is a question. This is a good one. Where did it go? I lost it. Oh man, I lost it. About the Kat Von D Shade and Light Contour Palette. That I think was game changing for a lot of people. Absolutely. I think contour palettes at the time, ABH had one, Lorac, and the Kat Von D one, I think were like the major ones at the time, teaching people how to contour. And I don't see as many people contouring as they used to. I know I don't contour that much anymore. I lost the comment about that though. I'm so sorry. Yeah, Emily says, agreed, Jen. I need a more curated palette to help guide my color story. Oh, totally. And speaking of that, that's a good segue into this one. This is the Tarteist Pro Remix that I want to talk about. Now, this came out not as long ago. This one's a little more recent. But this was the thing. This is what was happening, was that Tarte was being accused of being boring, which they do. And they are. They always came out with natural palettes. It was always super natural, like boring. They did come out with like unicorny looking. There was like a circle that had like really pretty, like pastel-y, unicorny, shimmery shades that was pretty cool. But people were screaming for a more bold eyeshadow palette from Tarte. This was their answer to that, the Tarte Pro Remix. It's very heavy. It's got like can you see it changing? Yes, you can. Yeah, you can see it change. So you can see the splatters changing. Very creative there. This is the inside. And it's like, I appreciate the intention, but I feel like they could have benefited from doing something like this. Like, this is a hot mess of idea. Like, I don't know what to do with this. When I purchased this, I personally don't know what to do with it. I feel like now that I have a little more experience in makeup, I know a little more of what I could do with something like this. But it's just, for the average makeup user, this is super confusing. Like, I appreciated the effort, but this did not take off, I think, the way that Tarte had hoped when they made it. It was like, basically like, shut up. This is like right after they did the basic, was it Basic Beach? Something like that. It was their April Fool's joke palette that was like all blue. Oh, it was Icy Betch. Icy Betch. And people were like, hell yeah, release Icy Betch. Like, that's, this is what we want from you. So I think that Tarte was like, okay, well, we'll release some colors. And it did not go well for them, I don't think, because they never released anything like this ever again. Like, this was it. This was the colorful product from Tarte. And I don't think we're ever getting it again. I think they gave up on us. Like, you said you wanted it and then you didn't buy it. I bought it. But I don't think the average like Tarte user was really interested in it. It's overwhelming. The whole thing is very overwhelming. Christy loved it. Oh, nice. Andrea says, same, that palette completely confuses me. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, yeah, I am Finley says, I love the Tarte Remix palette. I'm probably a minority of that, but I need to get more mattes. Yeah, and that was the thing I think about this, Finley, is that it didn't have hardly any mattes in it. It has 2 mattes in it, just these 2, where I think it could have benefited from a deeper brown instead of just, I think the black. No, the black has some sparkle in it. I think these are just the only 2 mattes that are in here. I think a deeper brown would have been very helpful. Something like, let's see, is there something in here that's, yeah. Maybe not these, but like, this is shimmery, but maybe something like that I think would have been a good idea to put in there to kind of balance it out and then organize it the way that Kat Von D had organized it. So it's easier to know how to navigate and put together. What I think I ended up doing with this was using a supplemental like natural palette to set up my look, and then just used 1 or 2 of these colors together to do things. But looking at this, I mean, there really are some pretty shades in here. I remember using Art Deco quite a bit and really liking that one. It's like a dusty blue. This one also calls to me the shade Moonlit. That one was really fun. This one down here, remember when green browns were like all the rage? Like these shades right here were like all the rage. Every brand, come on, every brand had one of these like green brown shades. I haven't seen a lot of that lately, but my hand is already a little bit blue from the last swatches that I did, so please excuse, but you can kind of get the idea. I need to get like makeup remover wipes over here for my hands. Yeah, was the Tarte Mermaid palette more colorful? It was, but it was all like light pastel-y shades, and I think they wanted to do something more bold, so this was their bold palette. All right, we have 2 minutes left. Oh my goodness. 2 minutes left. Okay, what do I want to talk about? Okay. Should we talk about this one? Let's end on Jaclyn Hill Morphe because we can. Let's end on Jaclyn Hill Morphe. Okay, this is the last one. So I'll show you the last ones that I had pulled out. I had pulled out the Graveyard Girl Swamp Queen palette because it had that sequin shade that Tarte coined as the sequin shade. It had one of those in there. This is the inside of that. So that was one that I had out. I also brought out the Tarteist Pro, the original Tarteist Pro palette, because these foiled shades were a game changer at the time. I also brought out the Too Faced Chocolate Gold palette because of the foiled shades that are in here that were a whole nother thing. And the giant James Charles Morphe palette, I brought that out, but I really do feel like if I have to pick one more palette to talk about, see, this is annoying as hell. One more palette to talk about, let's talk about Jaclyn Home Morphe, because this was a whole thing. There is a whole years long thing about this palette. Mine is very messy. Let me just say, I brought this with me to every event for the year after I bought this. Every event I went to, and I was going to a lot of events at the time. And I loved this freaking palette. Now looking at it, it's like, again, like I was saying about the Lorac Pro palette, there's so many repeat shades in here. There's so many shades we did not need two of in this palette. Like, why? I don't know. But this corner down here was really fun. And I do feel like the formula of this really changed a lot of people's minds about Morphe as a brand because it was a different formula. And I have a whole breakdown of all the Morphe formulas. This is when I was really, really into examining individual eyeshadow ingredients. So I have like a whole breakdown of the original Jaclyn Home Morphe formula. And it was so good. It was so freaking good. And this only existed in one other palette. And that palette's no longer available. It was a smaller palette that they made. It was something B. It was like, I forget, I can't remember, but it was a smaller palette that they used a similar formula to this. And that was the only other palette they ever used to my knowledge. Morphe's kind of off my radar at this point. But there were a lot of things that Jaclyn had said about this, about them being like individually pressed and like weird things, like, and how she like, there were like certain shades that she went back like 10, 15 times. And like, I'm sitting here thinking like how, like that lab must have hated her if she actually went back 10, 15 times, and how expensive that must have been to go back to the lab, unless Morphe has their own lab and it doesn't matter to them. But that's a whole nother thing. So what else do I want? There's so many things to say about this and we're out of time. The change in formula for this from the vegan formula to the non-vegan formula was a whole thing in itself too. And I think it helped people to realize that if you're repurchasing something, or if you think something, if you're vegan, or if you're looking, if you want to stay away from a specific ingredient, you really need to check, even if it's a repurchase, even if something's been out for a while and you knew it to be one thing, to really check the ingredients to make sure that before you buy it, that it doesn't have the thing that you don't want in there. That if you are vegan and you only buy vegan makeup, that it really is vegan, because that was a whole mess. That was, because the reviews of this palette, I ended up privating the review of this palette because I didn't feel like my review was valid anymore, because it was a totally different formula than what it is now. And it's really sad, because it's like, why, if you're Jaclyn and you spent so much time perfecting these formulas, like how did that happen that they just changed the formulas? And then she had come out with the second version of this and said it was the same formula, and it turned out that that was more of the new formula, the one that they had changed from her original formula. It was like a whole freaking mess, man. Man, I do wish that that was the worst drama that we had, though. I do wish that that was what we were complaining about in this world, was eyeshadow. I miss the days when that was what we used to complain about. But that's so sad. That's such a sad way to end this. Let me just say, though, let me say on a positive note, because I don't want to end it on something sad. This eyeshadow palette really did change my makeup game, and it was such a good palette to use on the go for events. The formula was fantastic. I don't know why Morphe never created more palettes with this formula, to my knowledge. It really was very good, and it's sad that it is no more. Again, I'm ending it on a sad note. Damn it! Come on, ghost in the mirror, help me out here. Yeah, Heidi says she didn't, Jen. That's the point. She's never been hands-on. See, I don't know. That's the thing is, it's like, I'm not there. We're not there. Like, do we really know that though? I don't know. I don't know. Oh, Gresham says RIP Coastal Scents. That was my first colorful eyeshadow palette was Coastal Scents. I bought it because of Leisha from X Sparkage and Marlene Estelle. They were the ones that got me to buy Coastal Scents. That was a whole thing. All right, I got to go. I'm 4 minutes over. All right, we're bringing the puppy in, and that's how we can end happy is bringing my baby in. Come here, baby. I know she doesn't really like being on camera, so come here, sweetheart. Will you stay on camera with me? Will you be my baby? This is my Cavalier King Charles. Her name is Haley, and she's amazing. Hi, baby. She doesn't really like being on camera. I know. Let me see if I can turn her around. She's like, nope. She doesn't like it. She does not like it. Okay, baby, I know you don't like it. It's funny that she will sit with me any other time except for when I'm on camera. Bye, baby. I love you. You're just going to sit back there. She's just going to sit on the floor back here and she'll cuddle with me after. All right, I'm going to let you go. I'm 5 minutes over. Have a great week. Again, if you have not registered to vote and you're in the US, link is down below. Even if you've never been involved in politics, you don't have to be like deep and have it be your life in order to vote. Just make sure that the people that you are voting for believe the same things that you believe. It's so, so, so incredibly important. Thank you so much for being here. And mad love to you. Have a great week. Next week's chat, like I mentioned, is going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I will see you then. Have a great week. Ghost in the Mirror just said bye.